Hare Krishna, welcome to this very special program on the systematic study of the greatest among all the Vedic literatures known to mankind, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we begin today's session, I shall chant a few prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet nashtaprayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this very special program on the systematic study of the greatest among all the Vedic literatures, among the Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Itihasas. The highest, the topmost position is that of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam has been explained to be the distilled essence of all the Vedic knowledge. It is the topmost among all the scriptures of the world, and it is the direct literary sound incarnation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. We have already studied the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we shall be beginning from the second canto in this program. The Srimad Bhagavatam has been explained in the Garuda Purana. Dvadasha skandha yuktoyam shatavicheda samyutaha grantho ashtadasha sahasraha Srimad Bhagavatabhidaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam contains a total of 12 cantos, 335 chapters and 18,000 shlokas. We have already studied the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that contains 19 chapters and 808 shlokas. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam concludes with the great king Maharaj Parikshit, who is also repeatedly described as Mahabhagavata, as a great pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. When he heard the news of his impending, of his imminent death in just 7 days by the curse of Shringi, Maharaj Parikshit immediately gave up, disconnected himself from all material connections, and came to the banks of river Ganga. And because he was such a great exalted personality, and the method of his death would be one of the greatest lessons in the art of dying for the entire world, for the entire universe, and therefore all the great spiritualists and transcendentalists, all the great sages from across the universe came to the place, and there was a great assembly now. And at that time, the topmost transcendentalist, Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vedavyasa, arrived, and he was given the principal seat of the Acharya, of the Guru, of the spiritual master. And then Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Shukadeva Goswami as to the most important duty for all people at all times, and also the prime duty of a person who is just about to die. These were the two very critical and important questions asked by Parikshit Maharaj. And now we shall begin the systematic study of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is relatively the smallest among the 12 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It contains 10 chapters and 393 verses or shlokas. But the content of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, although very technical in nature, yet is very, very profound and sublime. So the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it contains 10 chapters, and in the first chapter, Shukadeva Goswami firmly establishes that the highest path, the topmost activity and duty of all people at all times, and also the specific duty of a person who is about to die, is one which is Ananya Bhakti Yoga, pure unalloyed devotional service, especially with the devotional activities of hearing, chanting and remembering the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. In the first chapter, it is also explained about the initial preliminary stage of the practice of Ashtanga Yoga, in which there is the conception of the Virat Rupa, the universal form of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and the process of dharana or meditation on this universal form is very beautifully explained. The second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam further progresses on the path of Ashtanga Yoga, by which one can meditate on the super soul, the Paramatma in the heart. And finally, in the third chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the supreme and the ultimate process of spiritual God realization has been explained to be pure Bhakti Yoga. Later, in the fourth chapter of the second canto, we find the beautiful prayers offered by Shukadeva Goswami to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. The fifth and sixth chapters explain the very precise and exact process of the creation of the entire material cosmic manifestation. Further, in the seventh chapter of the second canto, we find the very beautiful description of the various Leela avatars, the incarnations of the Supreme Lord, who perform very enchanting and beautiful divine Leelas or pastimes. The eighth chapter contains a lot of inquiries, very, very important questions asked by Parikshit to Shukadeva Goswami. And then in the ninth chapter, we have the reply, the answers given by Shukadeva Goswami. And also in the ninth chapter is the very, very important Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the root, the seed of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, as given at the beginning of creation by the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna to the first living entity in the universe, Brahma. That is the original Bhagavatam, consisting of 4 seed verses which are known as the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. And finally, in the 10th chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the very important description of the topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam contains 10 topics beginning with Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Poshana, Uti. So these 10 subjects have been very exactly defined and explained in the 10th chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So now let us start right from the beginning, the first chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami, right in the first verse, Shri Shuka Uvacha, this is 2.1.1, Shri Shuka Uvacha, Variyanesha te prashnaha krito lokahitam nripa atmavit sammata pumsam shrotavyadishu yaparaha. Shukadeva Goswami highly praises the question, the very question asked by Parikshit Maharaj, being lokahitam krita, being a very exalted question. He highly appreciates the attitude of Parikshit Maharaj, because this question is for the highest benefit, the greatest good for all the people of this world. It is for Lokahitam, because the question of Parikshit was, what is the prime and ultimate duty, the prime duty of all the people at all times, and also the specific duty of a person who is about to die. So, Variyan eshate prashnaha krito lokahitam ripa Atmavit sammata pumsam. The question asked by Parikshit was also approved by the great spiritualists and transcendentalists. It is further explained that Shrotavyadishu yah paraha. This, the topic, the subject matter raised by Parikshit is the highest subject matter for discussion in this world. So, further, in the second to fourth verses of the second chapter of the first chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami very nicely explains the activities that need to be avoided, that need to be given up by all people at all times, and specifically by a person who is about to die. Because Parikshit had also inquired that what should one do and what should one reject, or what should one not do. So, Shukadeva Goswami is now going to explain what are the most important do's for a person, for all people, for all times, and also the don'ts of for all people, for all times, and also for a person who is about to die. So this is a very, we need to contemplate on the significance and the importance of the question raised by Parikshit Maharaj. He is inquiring how to live in this world, and finally how to leave from this world. So he is inquiring about how to live in this world, the art of living, and also the art of leaving, or the art of dying. So we all need to be trained, and we need to understand this very, very important instructions that are going to be now revealed by Shukadeva Goswami, that what is the right and the best method to live in this world, and finally to leave from this world. So, Shukadeva Goswami explains that Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrashaha Apashyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihamedhinam. Normally, for the ordinary mass of people, you can say for the 99.99% of the people who are described in this verse as Griheshu Grihamedhinam, those who are completely absorbed in materialistic consciousness, which is epitomized, which is characterized by Grihamedhi. This is a very special word that is used here to explain a person who is absorbed in material activities, that he is Medhi. Medhi means one who is very wise or intelligent, but all the intelligence has been directed, has been utilized only for grihamedhi, only for household or worldly or materialistic activities or affairs. So just like a grihamedhi is also compared later in the Bhagavatam 7th canto, that griham andhakupam, just like a person may fall in a deep dark well and is unable to comprehend anything beyond the bondage, beyond the purview of this well in which one may have fallen. Likewise, a person who is lost in material activities and completely absorbed in materialistic activities thinks that this life and this kind of an environment in which one is living is the all in all, and there is nothing beyond it. So even for such persons, the materially absorbed people, they have invented and created thousands and millions of subject matters and topics for inquiry and discussion. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Nridam Santi Sahasrashah. But all these inquiries and discussions are never approved by the spiritualists or the transcendentalists. They are a complete misutilization of our great gift of the human form of life of Manushya Janma. Further, in the third verse, Shukadeva Goswami explains how the human energy and intelligence and resources are completely wasted and misutilized by a materialistically absorbed person. Very beautifully, Shukadeva Goswami says that Nidraya hriyate naktam vyavayena cha vavayaha divacha agthehaya rajan kutumba bharanena va. The life of a person absorbed in material activities is very nicely summarized here, that normally a person spends his entire day from morning till night to work very hard to earn one's livelihood, to earn money and to increase one's material possessions. So divacha agtha ihaya, and naktam, the night is spent. Nidraya hriyate naktam, one sleeps in the night, or vyavayena chavavayaha, one indulges in some material pleasures like sex indulgence. So in this way, vyavaya, nidraya and vyayaya, these are the activities of a person in night, and in the daytime one is busy to work hard to earn one's livelihood and for increasing one's material possessions. So in this way, nidraya hriyate naktam vyavayena chavavayaha divacha agthehaya rajan kutumba bharanena va. In order to maintain one's family and one's livelihood, one works hard in the day, and in the night one sleeps and enjoys some material pleasures. So this is the sum and substance, the summary of our life, of our entire lifetime. We spend our day and night in this way. So we also are, even a materialistic person does become aware of the great danger of the passage of time. This time is a very, very powerful factor which drives a person, which brings about the transformations from boyhood to youth to old age, and finally Kala opens the door of the final attack of death, the final condition of mrityu. So a materialistically absorbed person, what he does is, this is actually the greatest danger. Kala brings about the greatest dangers for a person in this world, and a materialistic person tries to protect himself from all the onslaughts of Kala by raising an army, which is explained in the 4th shloka as Deha apatya kalatranishu atmasainyeshva satsvapi tesham pramatto nidhanam pashyan api na pashyati. One creates the sainya, atma sainya, an army to protect oneself of deha. One tries to keep oneself fit and healthy and thinks that the body is going to protect him. Deha, apatya, children, kalatra, wife, adishu, etc., etc. Our material possessions, our bank balance, our wealth, our possessions. We make a whole cocoon of a world and think that now I am safe. But the fact is, all these soldiers of this army are described here, are mentioned here to be fallible. Asat Sainya, they are fallible soldiers. When the real enemy would come, the enemy of Kala Sarpa, of death, all of them would abandon us and would just go away, unable to face this great danger, and a person would be defeated. So in this way, Atma Sainyeshva Satsvapi Tesham Pramatto, but because we are pramatta, practically crazy or insane, we are bereft of the real knowledge of what can protect us, and because of which we think that this is all in all. We need to just work hard in the daytime, we need to enjoy some material pleasures in the night and make a lot of possessions and create an army of a good and healthy body, or our children, our bank balance, our family members, our social conditions, our prestige, our status, and we think that now we are safe. But actually, even the person with the highest level of all these material possessions and material safety measures actually is in the most unsafe position, because when Kala strikes, when Kala Sarpa strikes, none of these things to the highest degree can give even the slightest of protection. So therefore, Shukadeva Goswami says that this one should avoid. One should avoid taking shelter of any material factor in order to be protected or to attain any real benefit. So next, in the 5th verse, Shukadeva Goswami explains the most important duty of all people for all times, and specifically of a person who is about to die. We need to understand the great importance and significance of this very important instruction that is going to be given by Shukadeva Goswami. We all should understand that this is the most important thing that we should be doing our entire lifetime, day in and day out. This is what we should be taking real shelter of, and this is the greatest savior and deliverer, the greatest medicine, the greatest doctor, the greatest insurance for everyone, for all times, and especially at the time of death. Normally, whenever there is the situation of death, we immediately think that some medicine, some medical treatment, some hospital, some insurance, something may protect us. But really, to tell you the fact, please note it in the core of your cell, each and every cell of your system, in your physical system, in your mind, in your intelligence, in your ego, in your soul proper, please remember this most important instruction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The greatest savior, the greatest medicine, the greatest doctor, the highest thing, especially for a person who is about to die, is now going to be revealed. In 2.1.5, Shukadeva Goswami says, Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavyaha Kirtitavyascha Smagtavyascha Ichchata Bhayam. For all persons, the highest perfection is to always engage, to constantly hear, chant and remember who or what? Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi, the supreme absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, Sri Hari or Krishna. So this is the greatest help, the greatest service, the greatest medicine, the greatest treatment, the greatest doctor, the greatest hospital, the greatest thing that can be done. The highest perfection for a dying person is the holy name of the Lord, the hearing, chanting and remembering of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Just remember this. This is the greatest gift to humanity, the most sublime gift to everyone. You can be the greatest doctor, the greatest beneficiary, the greatest well-wisher of any person who is about to die, and also pray to the Supreme Lord that such a help is rendered to one's self. What I mean to say basically is, if there is anyone who is about to die, you can act as the greatest well-wisher. The best doctor, the best medicine can be provided by giving the supreme gift of the remembrance, the chanting and hearing of the holy name of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. This is very specifically explained in the 2.1.6 in the next shloka by Shukadeva Goswami, that for all people at all times, the highest perfection at the time of death is Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishthaya Janma Labha Para Pumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. Janma Labha Paraha, the greatest success, the highest achievement in the human form of life. I have also explained this earlier, that our entire life is the preparation for the final examination of death. And one can attain the highest success. One can come out with flying colors, with distinction, if one may be situated in any kind of an existence. The perfection, the supreme perfection of either a materialistic existence of even a person on the material level or on the spiritual level. Any kind of spiritual practices, any kind of material position, the highest perfection is Ante Narayana Smritihi, the remembrance of the Supreme Lord Narayana, Krishna at the time of death. So this holds true for either material or spiritual. Etavan, either Sankhya, Yoga, Swadharma, Parinishthaya, whatever one may be in, at the time of death, the supreme success is attained if we remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. Ante Narayana Smritihi. This is also very nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita 8.5. Krishna says, Antakale cha mameva smadan muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayaha. That anyone who at the time of giving up one's body, at the time of death, is able to remember me, one is sure to attain the supreme spiritual success and go back to the eternal kingdom of God, the spiritual world, if one can remember the Supreme Lord. Further, Shukadeva Goswami explains that this has been the path enunciated, this truth has been acknowledged by the practitioners of all branches of spirituality. Prayena munayo rajan nivritta vidhishedhataha nirgunyasthara sma gunanukathane harehe. All varieties of all levels of spiritualists and transcendentalists, Prayena munayo rajan, all of them have, especially at the time of death, taken complete shelter and engaged in a complete absorption in the Supreme Lord Sri Hari Krishna. And he gives his personal example. Shukadeva Goswami says that Parinishthitopi Nairgunya, even I was completely situated and fixed in transcendence. Even of coming, I was already a Brahma Sakshatkara. I had already realized the impersonal Brahman, and yet as soon as Uttama Shloka Leelaya Grhita Cheta Rajakshe Akyanam Yadadhitavan, when I heard the message of the divine activities of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, even I was captivated and attracted. In fact, I was practically thrown off the platform of Brahma Sakshatkara, and then I became a Mahabhagavata or Bhagavat Bhakta. So we should remember here, this is a very, very important principle to understand. Either one may be a monist or an impersonalist or any kind of spiritualist. The highest perfection is only when one comes to the point of surrender and remembrance and chanting of the Supreme Personality, the divine form of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So this is very beautifully explained here that Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Etavan Nairgunyasthara ramante sma gunanukathane harehe. Nairgunyastha, those who even are, it is very, very clearly established here in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that even the Nirgunavadis or Avyaktavadis or Nirakaravadis have to elevate themselves, have to graduate themselves to the understanding of the value and importance of the personality of Godhead Bhagavan Harihi. So therefore, Nairgunyastha ramante sma gunanukathane harehe, that even those who are situated in Nirgunavada finally have to take shelter of the Gunanukathana of the divine glorification of the spiritual Satchidananda Vigraha of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. This is the highest benefit for every materialist as well as all kinds of spiritualists. So now Shukadeva Goswami assures Parikshit that I shall now impart to you the same supreme teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard from Vedavyasa and had elevated himself. Shukadeva Goswami was a Brahmavadi, but by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, he had elevated himself to the highest spiritual state of Bhagavat Vada, of being a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami again gives his conclusive verdict that etan nirvidyamananam ichhatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripanirnitam hare namanukirtanam, that etat nirvidyamananam, it has been finally and conclusively has been established that the hare namanukirtanam, constant chanting of the holy name of the Supreme Lord, is the undoubted and fearless way of success for all, for the materialist and the spiritualist. So, for the people who are completely free from material desires, or even those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, those who are self-satisfied by transcendental knowledge. So, for all of them, for yoginam, ichhatam or akuto bhayam, so for everyone, the supreme principle is Harer Namanukirtanam, the constant chanting and remembrance of the Supreme Lord Sri Hari or Krishna. So now, Shukadeva Goswami further explains that one should have the right values in life by which one can have a better quality rather than a large quantity. He says, Kim pramattasya bahubhihi paroksher hayaneriha varam muhurtam viditam ghatate shreyase yataha. What is the use or value of a prolonged lifespan which is wasted in material pursuits which are futile, temporary and are going to be finished? It is better even to have a very short lifespan, but even better is even a moment of full realization and consciousness is much higher. So therefore, the quality of spiritual life is better, is much better than a long lifespan or even millions of years of existence in material consciousness. That is the great value of spiritual practices and spiritual life. Parikshit was facing the eventuality of death in just 7 days, and he had anxiously inquired that what is the highest means of perfection in a very short time for a person who is about to die. Shukadeva Goswami gives Parikshit full assurance, and in that way gives complete assurance to all the people of this world, to entire mankind and humanity, that one need not have any fear. One can be fearless in the human form of life. One has this great supreme gift of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit heard the Srimad Bhagavatam and in just 7 days' time attained the highest perfection. So likewise here the time required to attain the highest achievement of spiritual perfection has been, it even can be achieved even in a moment's time. So it's not the time, but it's one's dedication and surrender that matters. This also does not mean that a person should become neglectful of spiritual practices, thinking that anyway, if spiritual perfection can be achieved in just a moment's time, then let me just keep postponing this. No, this is not the right attitude. One should have an entire lifetime. The entire lifetime should be the platform, should be the preparation for the final point of attaining perfection at the time of death. So Shukadeva Goswami here gives the very beautiful example of a great king by name Khatvanga Maharaj. Khatvanga was a great king of the Solar dynasty of the Surya Vamsha, and his narration is further found in the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Khatvanga Maharaj was a very, very powerful and a valorous king, and once the Devatas of the heavenly planets called him in a fight with the demons, with the Asuras, and Khatvanga fought very valorously for a very long time, and by his efforts he was able to bring victory for the Devatas. So when the battle got over, Khatvanga Maharaj inquired from the Devatas that I have spent a very long time in this battle, in this fight, so I want to know how much more lifespan is remaining. And the Devatas revealed that he just had a muhurta left in his lifespan. Muhurta is a duration of only 48 minutes. So he just had less than a hour to live, and at that time Khatvango nama rajagshir gnatve yattam iha yushaha muhurtat sarvamutsrajya ghatavan abhayam harim. Khatvanga immediately sarvam utsrajya, he immediately gave up, severed and cut off all his material connections and completely engaged in a pure devotional service of the Supreme Lord Sri Hari. And in just a muhurta, in less than 1 hour, Ghatavan Abhayam Harim, he attained the most exalted destination of the spiritual world, the eternal kingdom of God, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So Shukadeva Goswami encourages Parikshit Maharaj, Tavapyetarhi Kauravya Saptaham Jivitavadhihi. So therefore, if it is possible to attain the supreme spiritual perfection even in a moment, even in a muhurta, you have 7 days more, and therefore definitely you can attain this highest spiritual perfection. So he says that Tavapyetarhi Kauravya Saptaham Jivitavadhihi Upakalpaya Tat Sarvam Tavadyat Samparaikam. So therefore, you should now prepare yourself for the final ultimate success that one can attain at the time of death. So how one should prepare oneself is now explained from verse number 15 up to 39 of the first chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami has already previously explained that the highest perfection, the highest path for all people, for all times, and also at the time of death is the remembrance of the Supreme Lord Krishna in pure Bhakti Yoga. But a person who is engrossed in material consciousness may not immediately be able to appreciate and take up the pure path of spiritual life as enunciated in Bhakti Yoga. So therefore, Shukadeva Goswami, just for a theoretical understanding, we need to understand already the highest, the ultimate conclusion has been given, that of Bhakti Yoga, of remembrance of the Supreme Lord. But for a completely materially absorbed person, a gradual transition to raise and elevate oneself from material consciousness to spiritual revelation is presented here in the form of Ashtanga Yoga. We need to remember, we need to understand that Ashtanga Yoga, the system of yoga which has elaborately been explained by Patanjali Rishi, and which is sometimes claimed or touted to be the supreme path of yoga, is factually not so. Even in the Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter, it was rejected by Arjuna, the greatest spiritualist and transcendentalist of that time. It was also rejected as a very inferior path in the Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter, text number 47, Yoginam api sarvesham madghatena antaratmana. In the very same chapter where Ashtanga Yoga has been explained, it is concluded that higher and the highest of all systems of yoga is Bhakti Yoga, or constant remembrance of the Supreme Lord. So, Bhakti Yoga is pure, 100% pure spiritual system of yoga, the direct communion, the direct connection of Jivatma with Paramatma, with the Bhagavan. Whereas Ashtanga Yoga is a transitionary system of yoga to gradually extricate oneself from material consciousness to come to the higher levels of spiritual realization. So, in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami is going to explain this path of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga means the eightfold yoga system in which there are the eight paths, the 8 levels of Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and finally Samadhi. So, the first initial preliminary stages of Ashtanga Yoga involve Yama and Niyama, or the adherence to very, very strict rules and regulations, and which can only be followed by one who completely gives up the materialistic path of life. And therefore, in 2.1.15, Shukadeva Goswami says that Antakale tu Purusha Agate Gata Sadhvasaha Chindyad Asanga Shastrena Spriham Dehenu Yechatam. At the end of one's life, one should completely sever all attachment to one's material body and all connections therefore of the material body, and grihat pravrajito dhiraha punyatirtha jalaplutaha Shuchau Vivikta Asino Vidhivat Kalpitasane. In this way, following the path of Yama, Niyama, one should come to a forest, to a holy place, and start the practice with asana, and then come to pranayama, then pratyahara. One should withdraw all the senses from the objects of the senses, and then one should control the mind from all material agitation, and then come to the stage of dharana. So how this dharana? Niyached vishaye bhyoksha manasa buddhi sarathihi manaha karma bhirakshiptam shubhagthe dharaye dhiya. Gradually, as the mind becomes completely free from material sense activities and becomes progressively spiritualized, then the senses can be controlled, and then the mind, which is absorbed in materialistic activities, should be brought to the stage of dharana. So what exactly is dharana is now very succinctly explained here in 2.1.19 as tatraikavayavam dhyayed avyucchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tatah kinchana nasmaret padam tat paramam vishnor mano yatra prasidati. one should then completely absorb and meditate on Padam Tat Paramam Vishnur, on the Supreme Lord Vishnu Narayana. It is very, very important to note here that one should not be diverted and misled by the lure of the monistic theory, wherein it is recommended to meditate on some kind of a void or some kind of a nirakara, nirguna, attributeless, formless kind of thing. Here, the genuine, the real, the true path of Ashtanga Yoga always says that either on the level of dharana, dhyana or samadhi, the object of meditation is never formless, attributeless or nirakara, nirguna, avyakta. It is always the divine, positively Satchidananda Vigraha of the Supreme Absolute Truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, Narayana, Sri Hari. So dharana must be on the form of Padam Tat Paramam Vishnur Manoyatra Prasidati, on the divine form of Vishnu, of Lord Krishna. To be specific, the exact form of Vishnu that a neophyte, actually Shukadeva Goswami is going to explain here two systems of Ashtanga Yoga. An Ashtanga Yogi who is still having a lot of material attachment, a neophyte Ashtanga Yogi must fix his dharana, his mind, on the greatest manifestation of the material nature, which is also another form of the Supreme Lord. And that form, that object of meditation or dharana ashrayaha for a dhyana yogi, for a Ashtanga Yogi of the neophyte level is the Virat Rupa, the Vishwarupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord. Sometimes a materialistic person, normally people think that Virat Rupa, the Vishwarupa is the ultimate form of the Supreme. But actually, the real truth is, the Bhagavatam says that this is the most inferior. All the forms of the Supreme Lord are completely divine and spiritual and transcendental, are gunatita. The only one temporary and material form of the Supreme Lord is only one, which is the Virat Rupa. So this Virat Rupa is for the beginners, for the neophyte yogis, because they are still attached to matter and do not have a clear conception of the form of the Lord being beyond material nature, because they do not have a clear understanding of the spiritual nature. So they are advised to meditate on the most supreme material feature, which is the Virat Rupa, the universal form of the Supreme Lord. So this should be the object of meditation. Yasyam sandharya manayam. In 2.1.21, Shukadeva Goswami says, Yasyam sandharya manayam yogino bhakti lakshanaha ashu sampadyate yoga ashrayam bhadramikshataha. It is by this contact with Bhakti Yoga, because even the Virat Rupa of the Lord is another manifestation of the Supreme Lord. By this contact of Bhakti Yoga Lakshanaha, therefore even a person who is meditating on an Ashtanga Yogi attains spiritual advancement because there is a tinge, there is the touch of bhakti yoga involved, which is smaranam, the remembrance or the meditation on the gigantic universal form of the Lord. So this is very elaborately and very precisely explained how a dhyana yogi, an ashtanga yogi in the neophyte stage, how he should do dharana on the universal form, on the Virat Rupa. So it is explained very beautifully from 2.1.26 onwards that पातालमेतस्य हि पादमूलं पठन्ति पार्ष्णि प्रपदे रसातलं महातलं विश्वस्य ज्योथगुल्फौ तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्घे द्विजानुनी सुतलं विश्वमूर्तेर् ऊरुद्वयं वितलं चातलं च महीतलं तज्जघनं महीपते नभस्थलं नाभिसरो गृह्णन्ति उरस्थलं ज्योतिरनीकमस्य ग्रीवामहर वदनो वैजनोस्य तपोवराटीं विदुरादिपुंसः सत्यं तु शीर्षाणि सहस्रशीर्ष्णः. So in this way, the Srimad Bhagavatam explains the process and method of dharana or meditation on the gigantic Virat Rupa or the universal form of the Supreme Lord. That the Patala, there are 14 planetary systems, and all the 14 planetary systems, the entirety of gunas, the entirety of Kala, so Kala, Karma, Guna, all time, space, everything is encompassed within the Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord. This is just a small, a very, very insignificant feature of the Supreme Absolute Truth, who is the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna. This fact and truth is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text number 42. Krishna says, अथवा बहुनैतेन किं ज्ञातेन तवार्जुन विष्टभ्याहमिदं कृत्स्नं एक अंशेन स्थितो जगत्. This entire material manifestation is just Eka Amsha, just one insignificant part of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So this Virat Rupa is a very, very small and insignificant manifestation, a feature of the infinite Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So all the planetary systems, beginning with from the bottom, the Patala Loka should be basically in the conception of the Virat Rupa. One needs to understand that everything, even everything material, is connected with the Supreme Lord. There is nothing that is disconnected from the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So in his Virat Rupa, the Patala Loka are the bottom excuse me, Patalametasya hi padamulam. The Patala Loka, the Padamula, are the souls of the Lord's universal form. Likewise, the Rasatala are his heels and toes. The Mahatala planetary systems are his ankles. The Talatala are his shanks. The Sutala planet is the knees, and the Vitala and Atala are the two thighs of the Virat Rupa. The Mahitala or the Bhuloka is the hips of Virat Rupa. The depression of his navel is the outer space, the sky, and the Svargaloka is his chest, the Maharloka his neck, the Janoloka his mouth, the Tapoloka his forehead, and Satyaloka his head. His arms are all the Indradayo Bahava Ahurusra, the Devatas headed by Indra. The ears are his 10 directional sides. The physical sound is the Virat Rupa sense of hearing. His two nostrils are the two Ashwini Kumaras. All the material fragrances are Virat Rupa's sense of smell. His mouth is all the blazing Agni or fire. His eye pits are the outer space. His eyeballs are the sun and the moon. His eyelids are day and night. The movements of his eyebrows are where Brahma and the great personalities are located. His palate is Varuna. The juice or essence of everything is his tongue, the tongue of the Virat Rupa. The cerebral passage of the Virat Rupa are the Vedic hymns. Yama is the jaws of death that bite and crush everything. The most alluring smile of Virat Rupa is the very alluring and enchanting Maya Shakti. This great ocean of entire material creation is his glance, as stated in the Aitareya Upanishad, Sa Aikshata. It is just by the glance of the Lord that he creates this entire material manifestation. Modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Hankering is his chin. Religion or dharma is his chest, the front portion of the Lord of Virat Rupa, whereas the backside is adharma or irreligion, and likewise his waist are all the oceans. So all the rivers are the veins of the Virat Rupa, the trees are the hairs of Virat Rupa, his breathing is the all flowing air or Vayu, the passing ages are his movements, that is Kala. So entirety of space, time and even karma and guna, his activities are the three gunas. The clouds are the hairs on his head. So in this way, all the things, all the species of life, the animals, the various species of life, all these things, and even the Manu, the Gandharvas, the Vidyadharas, the Charanas, the angels, all of them are within the Virat Rupa, the Vishwarupa, the universal form of the Lord. And therefore, a yogi in the preliminary stage, when he fixes his mind, his dharana, after practicing up to pratyahara, and then fixes his mind on the gigantic Virat Rupa being the form of the Lord, one then gradually comes to the understanding, gradually elevates oneself, that even this gigantic cosmic manifestation is an emanation, is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord. So this gigantic manifestation, what is beyond it? The Supreme Lord, who is the source of the Virat Rupa, then he gradually advances to the next level of God realization. The first step in God realization is the understanding of the Virat Rupa, and then the second level is that of the Paramatma, the Super Soul in the heart of all living entities. So that would be explained in the second chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So which we shall continue tomorrow. If you have any questions about today's subject matter, you are most welcome to post your questions in the WhatsApp messages or in the comments box in the YouTube. Please do subscribe to our channel. Please do press the like button, and please do join us tomorrow for the continuation of the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.